All right, this week on the Vinyl Guide, we are talking music and records with Bryan Giles of the band Red Fang, a band very well known for the heavy, catchy, melodic. They're often described as doom or stoner rock. Bryan, not trying to label you, but for the uninitiated, how would you best describe the sound of Red Fang?
Well, yeah, I think I don't necessarily agree with doom. I mean, we can be grumpy, but we're not doom per se. And stoner rock, I think, is such a catch-all now that I don't think it really accurately describes any band. Well, with the exception of, say, like Caius or, some bands that are very much, that blues, the heavy blues sort of jammy type thing. So we don't do a whole lot of that. We're sort of a don't bore us, get to the chorus kind of band. But yeah, I guess it's somewhere. Yeah, we used to describe it as somewhere between Black Sabbath and Black Flag. We have, we like heavy metal, but we also like punk rock, or at least that's the influences the kind of things that we cull from the most.
But I would also tend to say you have some catchiness. There may be some Beatles hidden in there as well, because you do have some very catchy choruses, as you say.
Well, thanks for saying so. We hope they are. We hope they're catchy in the way of like a song you like, and not like a washing machine commercial. But yeah, I mean, we all love the Beatles. I think that's not uncommon, though. I suppose they're a pretty popular band.
Now, what would you say? Like, just again, this genre of music, there's a very strong difference. It sounds like from doom rock to stoner to sludge metal, that sort of thing. How would you divide those? Like, if you were to categorize those, or if you were to say, here are the differences between these particular sounds.
Geez, I'm certainly no expert. Yeah, I mean, doom it sort of suggest to me really slow tempo and really ominous, and maybe some Cookie Monster vocals. I don't know. And then sludge, I've always had a problem with. I'm not exactly sure what that is. We've been described as that too. Is it we're not in tune, or we're not playing well together? I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, I've heard that the bands described as sludge that are very different from each other, so I'm not really sure what that one even means. I mean, I guess like bands like Weed Eater get called sludge a lot. It's in angst ridden, I suppose. What was the third category?
Oh, I don't know. Look, I'm just shouting out these sort of generalizations
Okay.
that I've heard. I've heard the different genres being called that. I've never really sat down and thought about what's the difference between this one and that one. But I figured I'd go straight to the source, which is you, and you're equally perplexed. So.
I am perplexed, yes.
Okay, yeah. Nowadays, people like to make names for these sort of styles of music. Back in my day, we'd just say it sounds like Master of Reality, or something. So,
Right. Well, I think it's helpful for people to categorize things. It just helps them put it somewhere in their brain, so they know where to look for it. If they're trying to remember a band, they put a label on it, and there you go.
Fair enough. What were the most played albums you had growing up?
Oh, geez, like how old?
Oh, well, what are the ones that really kind of formed your brain, your musical taste?
I guess, when I was a kid, I think probably what I listened to most, was my mom's record collection, and she would play a whole lot of, Styx, Simon and Garfunkel, James Taylor, Linda Ronstadt. I guess, yeah, those are the bands that really stick out of my mind, just having heard them a ton when I was, between, I don't know, 6 and 12 years old.
And you grew up in a musical household?
Yeah, my mom was sang in choir pretty much her whole life. She was in the choir in college, and was an avid piano player, and still sings in her church to this day. So she got me involved in music very young. I was, playing the little plastic xylophone, when I was in first grade or whatever. And so I always continued whatever music program they were offering in school, I would take. I ended up, taking piano lessons at home, and then picked up the trumpet and started playing trumpet. I played trumpet in the band for 2 or 3 years. And then I decided a buddy of mine got a guitar, and I thought, well, that's cool. So I convinced my mom to invest in a guitar for me. So, And here I am now.
Straight from Linda Ronstadt and the Carpenters to Red Fang, yeah.
Exactly. It's pretty linear.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. Well, certainly the songwriting. So there must have been a middle step there. When was the first time you discovered heavy metal?
That'd be my brother. He's 3 years older than me, and he brought home two cassettes. One was ZZ Top. I think what was it? Eliminator and Van Halen, Fair Warning, and those were the first two rock records I ever heard, and I was smitten. I really did enjoy it. It definitely scratched a certain itch I guess I had in my brain.
Wow, yeah, great entry point. So you started along with the ZZ Top, Van Halen, started moving on to heavier stuff. Did you start to move into things like Metallica and Slayer, or were there other bands that got your attention before you got into the heavy stuff?
Yeah, I guess I think. Well, I think the first time I think I ever heard a metal song, I think I heard Sabbath or Black Sabbath on the Wolfman Jack show on the AM radio, and I was very young, and it scared the shit out of me. I was like, oh man! I mean, I felt like Satan was crawling through the little AM radio. But yeah, I guess but that was much earlier. So once I heard those tapes, I was hungry for more, and fell in with some kids who were also into hard rock, and I remember getting Ride the Lightning and just freaking out, just could not believe it, playing on my boombox, and I got to For Whom the Bell Tolls, and without even listening to the rest of the record, I listened to that song probably 4 or 5 times in a row, just kept rewinding it. I couldn't believe it. That bass lead in the beginning, it was just chilling. I loved it. I couldn't get enough. So that was probably the first like really heavy band that sort of got me on my way.
And how long was it between when you were listening to that music in your bedroom to when you started playing in bands?
It was pretty close. I think probably I was 12 or so when I heard Van Halen. And then I started playing guitar when I was 13, I believe. Yeah, so it was all pretty rapid.
Most people listen to Eddie Van Halen and give up guitar afterward, but you decided to want to use that as inspiration.
Well, I think I got into punk rock for a minute. I was into Motley Crue and Rat and all that kind of stuff, but then all those bands just got so watered down. They started doing the ballads, and that seemed to be selling records for them. So it went from records that had one ballad on it to a record that had one rock song and 9 ballads, and I was disgusted. So I started getting into punk rock because it was much leaner and angrier, and it wasn't some big bloated thing. Anyway, but I think that listening to punk rock bands like Circle Jerks, Black Flag inspired me to play music, because it was a great example of how you didn't have to be good at it. You just had to want to do it.
Yep. And
anyway, that's been my philosophy all along. I mean, if I felt like there was some kind of standardized test for whether or not you can be in a band, I don't think I'd pass.
So, what was the Portland music scene like? This isn't all in Portland, yeah?
I grew up in Tucson, Arizona, so I didn't move to Portland until my mid-20s.
Okay. All right. So you were playing in bands around Tucson, Arizona. What made the move to Portland?
Well, initially we moved from Tucson to San Diego. A friend of mine was thinking about moving out there, and I said, "Well, hell, I'm just spinning wheels." I was doing poorly in college, and I just didn't care about it. I honestly went into see an admissions or like a guidance counselor, talking about what my goals were with college and stuff, and she ended up talking me out of going to college. She was like, "Well, it sounds like you want to play music. It doesn't sound like your interest lies in academia." And I was like, "Well, you're right." Mm-hmm. My parents were none too pleased about that, but I think they steered me in the right direction. But anyway, so I moved to San Diego, and I started a band there called Last of the Juanitas, and which was sort of it was an instrumental, we called it math rock back then. This really confusing, convoluted noise compositions. But I mean, I had a blast doing it. I did that for about 8 years. So, I don't know if this is the entire reason, but our drummer, he's a heavy smoker, and they put a ban on smoking in bars, and the day before it went into effect, he moved to Portland. And so
that's dedication.
Yeah, I know, it's ridiculous. I don't think that was his only reason, but that's what he gave. But so we followed him up a couple of months later and continued with that band up here, and then I started a band with John and David, the drummer and guitar player in Red Fang. It was called Party Time, and we did that for a couple of years. And we named it that because we were trying to get more into like just shake your ass music, not so much confuse you kind of music. So it was still pretty damn confusing. But then with that band took a crap, and I moved back to San Diego. Meanwhile, David and John started playing with Aaron, and I was having no success starting a band in San Diego. Just couldn't find anybody who was as angry as me, I guess. And so they sent me demos. They said, "You want to come back up and join?" And I said, "Hell yeah!" So here I am.
Okay, so you started along the road with Red Fang. Now, was the name Red Fang there from the beginning, or did you have to go through a few cycles before that came about?
I think our first show we ever played was in a basement where we practiced, and I think we were called Panda. But that it just turned out there were so many pandas out there, different bands with Panda in it. We're like, well, all right, we've got to change it. So, this is true. I think Red Fang was, on a list of, 50 names, and it was the one that everyone hated the least. So it's basically settled on it, but what's in a name, right?
Yeah, no, fair enough. Although I don't think I can think of one band with Panda in it, but I'll take your word. There was a Panda epidemic.
Yeah, like 10 years ago. I don't know. Maybe they were all startups and they all failed. So we dodged a bullet. There's a panda plague.
Yeah. When the panda bubble burst, you guys weren't affected. That's good.
Exactly.
So you start pulling together a couple of EPs, I believe, that eventually became the first Red Fang album. How did that progression go?
First, we recorded 5 songs at the house where we practiced, at David's house, and it was just literally basement, it was Pro Tools basically, and so we put that out just as something to sell on tour, and so we burned them. It took them to a replication place and made like 100, and then maybe 6 months later we recorded what would end up being the second half of the first EP or the first LP with our front of house magician Adam Pike, and then we toured on that, burned a couple of those, and then we were, after the Prehistoric Dog video came out, Kathy Palo, who runs Sergeant House Records, she represents Whitey, the director, for our first video. Once that video came out, we were brought to her attention, and so we put that out. We put out both those EPs on Wantage, as a label out of Missoula. And then once Kathy found out about us, she was interested in releasing it. So she basically bought the record from Wantage and started putting it out. So yeah, the first LP is 2 basically demos to some degree. Well, they're a little fancier than demo.
Yeah.
Good, it was as good as we could do at the time.
No, fair enough. And was that on vinyl at all?
Yeah, it was on vinyl on Want It.
The first EPs. Okay.
No, the EPs were just on burned CDs.
Mm-hmm.
If you have one, I'd be surprised.
Okay, it was stuff that you guys burned to be able to sell at shows, and assuming that you guys are playing smaller places back then, and you had
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Selling handfuls,
shoebox tours.
So, from that album, from the Red Fang album, you guys start preparing for what became Murder the Mountains, which I believe would be considered your breakthrough album. What was the approach going into what became Murder the Mountains?
Well, that record we only had a 1 record deal with Sergeant House, and we knew we wanted to put another record out, but we weren't sure whether we were going to put it out with them or someone else. We didn't really have any idea, or really too many leads. So, but we love making music, so we were like, we're going to record anyway. So, and we took our time. I think it was probably about 2 years of just writing, whatever kind of song struck our fancy at the time. And so, yeah, it was probably about 2 years of slow songwriting. And then I went to the studio and recorded it. And what I was joking about is, because once it was done, I was like, I hope this isn't a really expensive paperweight, because it was homeless for a while. And so the producer and our manager were knocking down doors trying to get someone interested in it. And I think they had to approach Relapse 4 times before they finally agreed to release it. They passed on it at least twice. I know that. They're like, no, really, guys, this is good, really. And they're like, yeah. So basically sweated them. And I'm glad, because Relapse is a really good label to be on. They're really, laid back guys, sort of like being in family.
So they decided to take on Murder the Mountains. And when did you start to see that record take off?
I don't know if I ever saw it take off per se, but it was great that people were buying it. And, that it was getting some radio play on, like XM radio. And, my brother would text me and say, hey, your song is on, some metal show or something. And I'd be like, well, right on. That's great. But yeah, it didn't explode out of the gates or anything, but like we like to say, it's, it would be something if you wrote like some kind of single that's on regular rotation on major radio, and you're just, superstar or something like that. But I think what we have is we call a slow burn. I think that we're slowly accumulating fans, but I think that our fans are more committed to us than maybe some other bands that have some sort of instant success. So, we've been seeing our band grow in visibility anyway, but in a very, very methodical way. It's like gaining 20 more people show up to the show, next year. Say you play Chicago for 500, next year it's 520, so which is fine, because I love doing this. I want to keep doing it as long as I can, and slow, steady growth works fine for me.
Yeah, it's committed growth. If you have something that goes crazy overnight, then the downside is it cools off just as fast.
Exactly, or people just get really sick of it. There's some songs that I've heard I just cannot stand, only because they were shoved down my throat on multiple radio stations. You just couldn't get away from these songs, and it's like, whether that song is good or not, I hate it now. So luckily we don't have that problem.
There's another album, Whales and Leeches, in 2013, and now you've got Only Ghosts this year. What has been the change in terms of the songwriting approach or the maturity of the band since Murder the Mountains through the current LP?
I think that I'd like to think that we sort of trust ourselves more to, that an idea is worth trying, and it's, being less self-conscious about, what will people think, because to some degree, yeah, it's sort of scary when we're not like super huge or anything, but people will be hearing the songs you're writing, and you will be judged, so, but it's been nice. I think it's just, we very much, kept our nose to the grindstone and just write what makes us happy. And if people don't like it, people got on board with us, and I couldn't believe anybody cared about our music. So that they continue to is great, and I think that's really the big thing for us, is that we're not scared to fail.
How is it that you guys write music? Do you start with a riff and then everyone contributes, or are the songs mostly fully formed once they're brought to the band?
Yeah, generally it's a riff. What we like to do, or what I like to do when I'm bringing in ideas to practice, is if I have a riff that I like, I'll really try my best to come up with some companion piece. So, you have a verse and chorus or something, or a verse and bridge, or just two things that get along together. And I think that really helps kind of move things along. Sometimes you bring in a riff, and no matter how great it is, you just end up playing it over and over again, and it does never fit with anything. So, but I don't believe we've ever written a song around anything but riffs, as far as I can tell, unless it's a cover or something. You know, we did a Fraggle Rock cover song called "Why," and anyway, so we had those lyrics, but we didn't want to do it the way they did it. We wanted to make it into one of our own songs. So anyway, so yeah, when we do that, or we did an Elvis cover, "Fools Rush In," and that bears no resemblance to the original at all. You barely tell that that's what we're doing. Those are fun projects. I mean, I think that I wouldn't mind delving into that kind of thing more, because it makes you think differently.
Doing more covers?
Yeah, or just weird, just weird projects like that. You know, it's like, do a Fraggle Rock song. Are you crazy? You know, but I'm actually pretty proud of it. You know, speaking of Beatles, it's very reminiscent of a Beatles song.
Well, yeah, it makes more sense to do something like that, because it's more interesting, rather than doing something that people would predict, or that feels like ground that's already covered. So, no, a Fraggle Rock cover, I'm on board.
Yeah, I think you might like it.
Great. Okay, I'm gonna check this out. Maybe I'll play a little bit for the audience, if that's all right.
Absolutely.
So you guys generally start with a bit of a riff. The band gets in a room, they bash it out. Everybody contributes, and tries different things, and then you guys settle on what you believe is the final form of the song. Is that what you take into the studio, or is there still more baking to do?
Always, yeah. I mean, Only Ghosts was the most prepared we'd ever been, I think, as far as going into the studio, as far as how we saw the songs congealing. But once we got there, and we knew this going in, because Ross Robertson's very active participant in the composition of the music. You know, trying to get at the core of what the message of the song is and everything. And so yeah, I mean, we were dismantling and reattaching parts to the songs. You know, we were in there, I don't know, I would say it was like a song a day just for the drum tracks, and we were basically rewriting everything. So yeah, it was a lot of extra cooking goes on, that's for sure.
And when you get the final product, are you ever surprised about the outcome, or is it pretty much exactly as you recall it?
I am surprised, especially there were some songs. Oh God, I'm not going to remember the name of this thing. There was a song on Whales and Leeches that I just was not getting behind. I mean, the riffs were interesting, but it was confusing to me. I didn't see how it was going to be a song. It just sounded like a collection of various riffs that were attached to each other. But once Aaron did the vocals, it was very much a Eureka moment for me. I was like, oh, this song is great. I had no idea that this melody could flow, could make everything get along so well, So it is. It's a fun surprise, especially since we don't really do. Up until this last record, we rarely did anything with the vocals until after the basic tracks were recorded. So yeah, it's a fun surprise, like Christmas.
So that's interesting in terms of you going along with the song. The rest of the band was on board. You were a little bit hesitant. Maybe you didn't see the whole vision. And then, like you said, you had that Eureka moment. That really is a moment of trust within the band.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really important element to our longevity, I think, is that everyone's creative input is accepted, and we don't judge each other and stuff. So you can come in with a gonzo idea, and people, well, they'll run with it for a minute, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But it's like no one will ever just say that's terrible out of hand. I think everyone is willing to give almost anything a shot. I think that one of the moments that sort of solidified that for us, I think, was what I call the spaghetti western part in a song called "Wires" on Murder of the Mountains, and it sort of sounds spaghetti western to me. got a lot of weird ambient effects, and it's quiet. And anyway, I thought, what is this? This is so bizarre. I mean, I don't know how this is supposed to fit into a hard rock song, but once I heard it in context, I think it worked great. And that was, I think it was Aaron's idea, and my inside voice was like, oh, this is crazy, but I didn't say that out loud. We went with it, and I think it really makes the song because of the dynamic, the shift in dynamics, so that when it gets loud again at the end, it has way more impact.
Yeah, I think I know exactly the moment you're talking about. It's a tension builder, and it prepares you for that. It transitions you from the first part to the end, which is
I didn't see it. I didn't see it for what it was at the time. I just thought, well, that's crazy. But like I said, I mean, we trust each other, so like, all right, show me how to do it.
Yeah, that part's crazy, but the Fraggle Rock idea, brilliant. No. So when you guys develop your albums and it goes to production and manufacture, there's a lot of limited runs in terms of colors for the vinyl. And, this is the vinyl guide, so we got to talk about records here. A lot of the early color runs are 300 purple, 400 red. What is the decision process around quantities and colors and that whole general approach to do those limited runs?
Well, I think people do like to have, collectability is definitely one of the appeal, one of the things that attract people to vinyl. It's way more way more of a real thing. You have the record, where you buy a CD and you put it on your computer, and then you lose the case or the CD, and it doesn't really matter. It's the music is what you're getting there. But with vinyl, it's something, and to have one that's like, oh, there are only 200 of these, for some people, it's like butterfly collecting or something. As far as the numbers of various, color runs, I have no clue as to what mathematics are going into that kind of thing. I think, Relapse, our label determines that, and I think they probably just look at past sales and just sort of try to adjust. They definitely don't want these things sitting around a warehouse. So,
right.
So there's got to be some math behind it. I am not a mathematician, but it's fun. I mean, I tell you, the new vinyl thing they can do, it's just crazy. It's just, you'll have like colors within colors. It's incredible. I'm really impressed. It's fun. It's really rejuvenated, I think, vinyl as a culture.
Oh, it is. Not only do you get the art in the audio, but it also looks like a piece of art. Some of these splatter pressings, which you guys do quite a lot of. Interestingly, and this is more for the audience than anyone, if you go to the Relapse record store, which is relapse.com, quite often they slip collectible colors of some of the Red Fang catalog into the online store, so you could get them for a steep discount. Like, I just went and checked the Whales and Leeches the other day, and they've got some of the very collectible colors for about half of what they normally go for. So pay attention to the Relapse store, because you could quite often get a deal on some of these collectible vinyls. I guess maybe they just find a box in the warehouse and say, well, let's move these, or let's give somebody a deal on these.
Yeah, you don't want them to be doorstops. You want them to be on someone's turntable.
Exactly. You want them to be enjoyed and out in the wild. One thing that I've noticed, maybe you can confirm or correct or even compliment, is there are clear vinyl versions of each Red Fang album that are limited to 100 units. Each release only has 100 clear vinyl copies. Are you familiar with the story or the logic behind that?
I believe that every Relapse release has. I'm pretty sure that's what they do with every vinyl release. They do 100, and that's for friends and family. So everybody gets a couple of clear copies, and they're meant to be, like those are the special ones, But I think I saw a clear one for sale like a day or two after after the record was released on eBay. I'm like, well, someone didn't think it's that special.
Someone's got to make a car payment. So yeah, so that's interesting. So every band that's on Relapse, whenever they do a release, they'll do 100 clear vinyl copies, but those are friends and family. I suppose when the album's out, you get one or two copies of this and delivered to you, and that becomes part of your collection.
Yes. Speaking of which, I haven't gotten mine yet.
Oh, okay. Oh, I know where you could buy one.
eBay.
What does your record collection look like, Brian?
Geez. Well, I can look at it. It's woefully malnourished, but I've got some cool records, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I won't tell you every record I have, but
what are some of the ones that you have in heavy rotation?
Willie Nelson's Stardust. I play a lot. I think it's great. Bloody Mary morning music. Currently, I have Lord Dying's Poison Altars on the turntable in gray vinyl. Yeah, I've got friends bands like David Sullivan, the Red Fang guitar player. I've got he's got a split LP with his band was Shiny Beast with Regrape. Mm. Yeah, I got weird stuff. Pink Floyd metal I play a fair amount. One of my favorite records is it's a Sonic Youth EP with Death Valley 69 featuring Lydia Lunch. But it's got several skips in it, so that kind of breaks my heart. But I haven't thrown it away. I just look at it.
Do you have your records from your youth?
Yeah. I'm looking at a Christ on Parade album that I bought when I was probably 15. I haven't listened to that probably, God, I can't, maybe 20 years, but it's still here. I got Don Caballero on vinyl. I listen to that fairly often. I like those guys. And then I've got, stuff from my parents' collection, just, when they were throwing out vinyl, I took some, like, I've got The Sound of Music, Stuart Copeland's Rumblefish soundtrack. I've got Laurie Anderson, Big Science.
Oh, okay.
That is a crazy record. Have you ever listened to that one?
No, I used to have Home of the Brave, and that was enough of a tweak to me. I didn't go too deep into Laurie Anderson, unfortunately.
You go too deep, you'll probably lose your mind. We just played in Amsterdam, and she had performed the night before with Philip Glass, and he was playing 2 nights, and I didn't get to see him either. But I was like, oh man, I would have been interested to see what she does in a live setting.
Big Science. That was her real popular album, I believe, as well. Yeah. I
think if you can call it that. I mean, that "Oh Superman" song, which I can't believe got the kind of MTV plays and stuff that it did. It was just so weird. But I guess it was weird enough for me to buy the record. So.
Yeah. That's great. Back in the day when MTV was crazy enough to take a chance on something like that, that was refreshing.
Exactly.
All right, so you've heard of fantasy football, right?
Sure.
Let's play a quick round of fantasy metal band. Who would be in your ultimate metal band, alive or dead, on the different instruments?
Oh, geez. I guess it'd be John Bonham on drums. Who else would be in the band? Kim Thale on guitar.
Okay. Soundgarden?
Yeah. I can't tell you his name, but the bass player for No Means No would be perfect. Mm. And vocals, geez. Maybe the guy from the Cherubs, the high-pitched guy from the Cherubs.
Okay.
That would be a hell of a band. Put it together.
All right, make it so. Excellent choice. I hope I hope to hear some music. I hope to hear a Fraggle Rock cover from them. That would be great.
There you go.
So you guys have a tour coming up now. It starts November 18th at Slim's in San Francisco, wrapping up December 17th in Portland, Oregon, which I'm assuming is going to be a big homecoming show. How do you guys prepare for a tour of that scale?
We practice.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
There's a lot of logistics to go into as far as making sure that, we got all of our T-shirt designs worked out and printed in time, and making sure that we have the right amounts for sure, so we're not running out immediately. in sizes. And our tour manager has gotten really good at being Kreskin and figuring out just exactly how many of each shirt and what size, and just knowing historically what styles sell and that kind of thing. So a lot of that, just making sure our merchandise is all set up. And yeah, we practice, maybe we'll probably practice 3 times a week for the next 2 weeks to get prepared. And then it's just to rent a U-Haul and load it up and hit the road.
All right. So in the merch booth, is there going to be any vinyl that people can pick up at the shows?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. We should have vinyl from every record. So come on down and buy all 4.
After the show, not before you get into the pit, but after the show, pick them up on your way out. So with each album, it's also accompanied with some videos, and you guys are actually quite prolific with your videos, having 2 or 3 off of each record. Any new ones coming out that people can look forward to?
Yeah, we our friend Michael Illick has been working on a video for a song off of Only Ghosts called No Air, and I'm excited about it. They built all these miniature sets, and it's all little pewter action, D&D characters, and there's no animation. It's just stills, but just with dramatic camera angles apparently tells a story. And I'm sort of chomping at the bit to see it. That should be out in the next week or 2.
Oh, okay. So that quick. Okay. All right. So we'll include some links to that as well. All right. We look forward to that. Thank you so much for spending time with the Vinyl Guide audience, Bryan. We really enjoy Red Fang. The new album, Only Ghosts, is a real ass kicker. So I encourage everyone to go check that out. Also, make sure to check out the special releases of Only Ghosts and some of the other Red Fang records at Relapse.com. Again, they have some special pressings, some collectible colors and whatnot of these releases, and quite often you could find those at a really good deal at Relapse.com. Also, make sure to check out redfang.net. Check out the tour dates. They're getting ready to go on tour the last few months of 2006. Well, you guys are always touring anyway, but they've got another tour kicking off right now. If they're close to your city, make sure you take an opportunity to go see them. It really is a show to remember. Bryan, thanks again, and keep flying the vinyl flag.
Right on. Thanks for having me.
No
Will
worries.
do.
Cheers.